Hey y'all, so this Christmas 2022, my mom and I decided to go to Zurich, Switzerland. We created a dope 5 day itinerary, flew out of Newark on Swiss Air directly to Zurich. Now, one thing about my mom and I is we take a lot of pictures. We are always smiling, always cheesing, so get ready for a lot of that. When we first got to the hotel, my mom wanted to take a nap, so I went and got me something to eat. Went back to the hotel, and look who was ready to go out and hit the streets. We went back outside and just started walking around because, of course, the first day is just a day to acclimate yourself to the area. We stayed at a centrally located hotel, so it was really easy to just walk to everything. We saved a lot of money with transportation by simply just walking and stopping to take pictures just about everywhere. Our first stop was the Christmas markets. Now, we absolutely love Christmas, so Christmas markets are definitely our thing. We love to walk around, be silly, just have a good time. So that was first on the list. This particular Christmas market was directly in front of the Zurich Opera House. We stopped, took a few pictures, and then went and caught a free show. Our next stop was dinner cruise. We got lost along the way. My mom asked Santa. That didn't quite work out, but we did eventually find it, and we were really surprised to walk in and see our name on the table. That was cute. It was a really nice setup and very welcoming. The food was amazing. This dinner was a really nice experience. This was only my second time doing a hot stone grilled dinner, and I really enjoyed it. Just so you know, the meat was already partially cooked, so it wasn't completely raw. By the time I was done, I was good and full and ready to go to bed. Day two was definitely our adventure day. We decided that in order to get around, we were going to take the train and just figure things out on our own. Zurich is definitely a pedestrian friendly city, so public transportation was really easy to access and really easy to use. So our first stop was to one of my mom and I's favorite vacation activities, cooking class. This particular cooking class was a cheese tasting as well as a chocolate souffle baking class. Hello. So, of course, at first we were surprised to see that Shirley was not originally from Switzerland, but she was very knowledgeable about the country, the culture, and of course, the food. The classroom was set up really nicely. It was perfect for small groups. So here's our cheese plate. Let me tell you, this thing was good. Not only was the cheese good, but the history and the information was really interesting. After the cheese, we started our souffle baking class. That was so much fun. We started off just getting a little bit of information, learning about the process, getting some background so that way we're not in her kitchen messing stuff up. Our first order of business was everyone had a specific task. My mom's task was to butter the ramekins. My task is exactly what she's showing me right now, which was to sugar the sides of the ramekins. Now, let me tell y'all something. My mom likes to get in these classes and show off because she's been baking bread since she was 3. So here she is buttering and doing her souffle butter thing. And I'm over here struggling with this sugar, trying to make sure it gets all around. But it's all right because I feel like we did a great job and I'm proud of myself. So that's all that matters. And here you can see our work of art. Now, while we were doing this, the other group was actually making some chocolate sauce. Now, remember what I said? My mom was the only person to stir up this chocolate the way the lady did it. Me, I don't know. I don't know.
Now, this is the way to gently fold it. Okay, so everybody should try, and we're gonna do this until we don't see any more. Why? So Bernadine, you can just finish that. Okay.
So you see, she just let her finish it because she probably knew that explaining it to either of us again was probably going to take up too much time. Just go ahead and let Bernadine finish it. And she did, and it was great. So here we are. So after all of that vigorous mixing was done, she put the mixture into the ramekins to set them in the oven for about 12 minutes. So that actually worked out well because that gave us some more time to just chat about the history and the information and of course have a little bit of wine as well. So after the souffle is out, they look amazing, soft, fluffy, they tasted good. I was really proud of myself. This was an excellent class. Highly recommended. After class, we were back on the train to go to our next stop. And as you can see, my mom could not wait to get to the home of chocolate. Now, Lent has a timed entrance situation where you actually sign up or reserve for a specific time to enter. So that gave us time to just kind of walk around and do what we love to do, take millions of pictures everywhere. So after we took a few pictures, enjoyed ourselves, then we were able to go ahead, get our tickets, and go inside. Check that out. That's real chocolate, y'all. So the museum actually has a pretty cool audio tour system. You get one of these boxes that actually works kind of like a little phone. You activate it by putting it next to the flag of the language that you speak. And then when you get into the exhibit or into the museum, you'll see those same little circles everywhere. You just tap the circle and it reads to you just like if somebody was standing there next to you giving you a tour of what you're looking at. Now, there's one thing y'all need to know about me as a former history teacher is that I love history, all kinds of history. So just to learn about where chocolate really came from and how it ended up being in Nestle's hands was really interesting. The other thing I love about history is recognizing that most things just came from a human being with an idea. The last part of the exhibit was all about tasting the actual chocolate. Now, there were a lot of people there, but fortunately, there were also a lot of sanitizing stations, lots of wipes, all of that good stuff. So I felt comfortable walking around and tasting chocolate everywhere. In addition to the chocolate tasting, they also had a few games and different things just to kind of engage you and talk about the process of taking a raw cacao bean into a chocolate treat. The games were quite interesting because it actually goes to show that a lot goes into the quality assurance process for every chocolate bar that you eat. And of course, right at the end of playing those games, you got a little treat. It was really cool walking through this part of the museum. It was definitely giving Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, so I definitely was like, let me take it easy on getting these pieces of chocolate out of this machine. At the end of the museum tour, of course, you're going to get some free chocolate. So we stood in a long line, got ourselves a little parting gift, which at first was like, oh, that's it. But after we got our chocolate from there, we saw that we were able to get more chocolate samples with the ladies in the back to make sure people weren't taking more than enough. Our last stop of the evening was at a fondue chalet in front of the famous singing Christmas tree. This was actually our first fondue of the trip. So we were excited, looking like, okay, what is this going to be like? Like, we've had this whole cheese lesson. Let's dig in, let's figure it out because now we are pro. We walked around a little bit more, got some glow wine, and walked home. We really enjoyed walking around because it felt safe. There were these small Christmas markets everywhere, and it wasn't that cold. Rainy, yes, but not cold. So cheers to a great day two and getting around on public transportation. Day three, and we were off to the Alps, my absolute favorite part of the trip. This is the reason I wanted to go to Switzerland in the first place. I wanted to see the Alps. This particular tour was taking us to Mount Titlis with a stop in Lucerne. We only had about an hour or so here, so we just walked around, did a bit of sightseeing, and just followed the folks who got off the bus with us. Our stop in Lucerne was pretty short, so we didn't have a whole lot of time to learn about the history, but we did have the opportunity to walk across the Chapel Bridge, which was built back in the 14th century. So what's crazy to me is as a kid, places like this only existed in my imagination. They were like the backdrop to, Disney movies like Beauty and the Beast and things like that. So seeing these structures built back in the 14th century is kind of dope. After walking around for about 15 minutes, we went and got something to eat before getting back onto the bus. And not too long afterwards, we were finally at Mount Titlis. And I was so geeked. I was so geeked to be here, y'all. And so was my mom. I had expected to see snow or experience snow the entire time that I was in Switzerland. This was actually the only time I experienced any snow. And not only that, the majority of it was actually rain. So that was a bit of a disappointment. So the Selfie Queen and I hopped on a cable car and made our way up the mountain. It was so beautiful, y'all. I was so excited to finally see some snow. And check this out. Each car had a flag, and look whose flag that was. Yes, Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, anyway. So it was blistering cold. I mean, smack you in the face like cold. Oh my goodness. But at the same time, it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. As cheesy as it sounds, I could not think of a better Christmas season than actually walking in a winter wonderland. A few of the attractions were closed that day because of the wind, so that was kind of disappointing because, of course, I wanted to see things live and in action, but it was still just so beautiful to be there. We spent the day mostly walking around. We ended up having lunch, and then right as it was time for the tour to pack up, we hopped back on a cable car and went back down the mountain. I'm definitely coming back one year to ski. So our tour dropped us off right across from the train station. We go into the train station and bam, another Christmas market. So we spent some time walking around, trying more cheese, eating slices of ham. I mean, all the Christmas goodies that you can think of. We walked a long way home, stopping to take more pictures and just enjoying the end to day 3. Day 4 was Christmas Eve and our Zurich city tour. Now, we could have low-key given this tour because we had already walked around so much. The good thing about it, however, was even though we had seen these things before, it was great to have a knowledgeable guide who can really tell us what we were looking at and the history behind it. Now, one of the best parts of this tour was lunch. They dropped us off in this enchanted forest and we had to walk through the wilderness to get to the lunch chalet place. It was fun because we couldn't see anything. It was such heavy fog. It was a really nice walk, though. You can see that this was a place that when it's clear and warm, people probably come and sit out and have lunch and picnics or whatnot. But it was really, really nice to be out in nature like that. So for lunch, we got a raclette, of course, which is so good. Oh my gosh, please try it when you go. And 2 beers. While we were eating, the fog began to list and the views were stunning. I was like, oh my goodness, y'all, I love nature and just natural beauty like this. Do y'all see this view? It was gorgeous. And then look who comes strolling out, ready for her selfies. The selfie queen, yes. So then the guy comes and kind of rushes us along. We're struggling trying to get back up this hill. And y'all, I am tired. Woo! We finally make it to the cable car and head down to the bus. After lunch was our last stop, taking the ferry across Lake Zurich. Now, this was pretty interesting because the bus drove right onto the ferry and we just got off and walked upstairs. The entire ferry ride was somewhere around 30 to 45 minutes long. Zurich gets a 10 out of 10 on scenic views from me. Everywhere you go, the natural landscape is just amazing. If you're a nature person and you love the outdoors and you love like beautiful views, this right here was it. Even with the overcast and the gloomy cloudiness, I still enjoyed the views. They were just unmatched. This is definitely a country that I would return to multiple times. After a while, we started getting a little restless. It was really cold on the deck, so we came inside to just sit down and chill out until it was time for us to board the bus again. Not very long after, our guide came and got us, and we made our way back to the bus. And of course, before we got back on the bus, someone had a special photo request. Give me a picture of the bus. After I was done with my photographer duties, we boarded the bus and went back to the train station. We enjoyed 2 cups of hot Negroni, walked around the city once again, and then went for dinner. After dinner, we walked over to Grossmünster Church for Christmas Eve Mass. The next morning, we started our day right back at Grossmünster Cathedral. Still content with walking everywhere, we decided to walk to our Christmas brunch at the Marriott Marquis. The walking is fun for us because we stop so often to take all these silly pictures. This really gives us an opportunity to stop and take in our surroundings. That's one thing I really love about traveling with my mom. This Christmas brunch at Marriott Marquis did not disappoint. The service was excellent and there were a lot of options. After brunch, we went over to the museum. This was a great, unconventional way to spend Christmas Day. First off, we had no idea it was even open. So the fact that it was gave us an opportunity to just do something where we can hang out together, learn a little bit about the history of Zurich, and just have fun. I tried to help. After walking around until it was time for them to close, we decided to walk around the city to see what was open and what was going on. We noticed that a lot of restaurants were still open, so we decided to walk around to see what looked good. This particular fondue restaurant was directly across from our hotel and had a long line every night. So we decided to stop here. This turned out to be the best fondue that we had had the entire time that we were there. By the time we got upstairs, the line had grown, so I'm glad we got to try this out our last night. Cheers to an amazing Christmas day. The next morning, we got up and got ready to go. Before heading to the airport, we went back to the raclette factory that I went to on the first day that we were there. We started our meal with some local cider beer that was pretty good. I was really glad I was able to bring my mom back here because the raclette that I had here on that first day was so good. You cannot leave Switzerland without trying this meal. After we ate, we went back to the hotel and caught a cab to the airport. We checked in, played around in duty free for a while, and got ready to go back home. This was another amazing holiday spent with my mom. I think she'd agree.